They say you can't own a lake, but Cassandra Holt thought she could buy its soul. 60 sprawling cabins, a floating restaurant, a new name for the lake my grandfather gave his life to protect Lake Whisper. She believed her wealth, her slick contracts, and a smile as cold as winter ice could erase a century of history. She had no idea who she was tangling with or what this lake could do when it decided it had had enough. Have you ever seen someone charge headlong into a fight they couldn't win, thinking no one would dare stand in their way? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. I'm Caleb Monroe, and I thought I knew every ripple of Lake Whisper. For 15 years, I ran its dam operations, keeping the water steady, the community safe. This lake wasn't just my job, it was my blood, tied to the cabin my grandfather built on its shore in the 1950s. I pictured retirement as quiet mornings fishing, the water's edge my sanctuary. I was dead wrong. Greed doesn't let peace linger. That Tuesday dawned like any other. I grabbed my tackle box, set out for base, the mist draping the lake like a ghost. But as I neared the old spruce grove, my stomach dropped. Construction signs gaudy, professional one screamed, Lake Whisper Luxury Estates, 60 elite cabins, grand opening summer 2024. 60 cabins. Not a handful, not a dozen, but 60, clawing into a shoreline that had stayed wild for generations. A marina, a floating restaurant, a waterfront event plaza. The words swam before my eyes. An event plaza on my lake, where my grandfather taught me to read the wind and waves. It was like hearing someone plan to pave my home for a strip mall. I tied my boat and stormed to the HOA office, a glorified shed behind the community hall. Cassandra Holt, all razor-sharp heels and sharper motives, didn't even look up from her laptop, her fingers clicking like she was orchestrating a takeover. When she finally met my gaze, her smile was a blade, cutting through any hope of reason. Mr. Monroe, I presume? What's the issue? She asked, her tone honeyed venom. Explain why 60 cabins are tearing up my family's lake. I snapped, my voice shaking with rage I couldn't hide. Her smile grew, chilling me to the bone. She slid a thick folder across the desk, papers fanned out like a winning hand. This lake is the centerpiece of my resort empire, she said, barely glancing at her documents. Get on board, Mr. Monroe, or find a quieter place to live. Centerpiece? I stared, stunned, as she pushed a business card toward me. Holt Ventures. She'd spent months buying lakefront lots under shell companies like Serenity Cove LLC, masking her takeover. While I'd been casting lines, thinking I lived among neighbors who valued this place, she'd been plotting to turn Whisper into a tourist trap. All legal, she boasted, with zoning approvals and environmental permits squared away. I stumbled back to my cabin, the lake's mirror-smooth surface mocking me. Loons sang across the water, a heron stood frozen in the shallows. Soon, jet skis and garish lights would drown them out. I felt nauseous. Maybe I should have packed up, let her have it. But my grandfather's voice rang in my head. Some fights are worth losing, as long as you fight. 3 days later, the harassment kicked off. A violation notice was taped to my door, accusing my fishing dock built by my grandfather in 1962 of unsightly waterfront upkeep. A $500 fine and a demand for a visual enhancement plan. It was a power play, pure and vicious. Cassandra wanted me out. Then the rumors started. Neighbors who'd waved for years now crossed the street to avoid me. Old Mrs. Larson, who'd ramble about the weather, practically ran past my driveway. I later learned Cassandra was spreading poison, claiming I'd been sacked from dam management for safety breaches. Me, who'd kept this lake flawless for 15 years, with county awards to prove it. She painted me as a loose cannon, too reckless for a sprinkler system, let alone a dam. I turned to the law, foolishly thinking truth could win. Lucas Grant, a rookie lawyer with fire in his eyes, took my case. This is corporate greed at its worst, he said, sifting through documents. We filed a complaint with the town board, rallied signatures, and prepped for a public hearing. We had traffic studies, environmental data, and stories from residents who remembered the lake before developers sniffed around. But Cassandra's presentation was a masterclass in manipulation. Glossy slides, promises of jobs, renderings of a utopia that hid a nightmare. The board voted 5-0 for her, dollar signs blinding them. I sat there, hollow, as her heels clicked out like a death knell. The law had failed, but I still had my keys to the dam control station, a concrete bunker tucked in the pines. Inside were my flow maps, dusty but clear, a map to the lake's secrets. Cassandra thought she'd bought Whisper, but she didn't know water. I tweaked underground valves, undoing her crew's damage to natural channels. 3 days later, her foundation pits filled with groundwater, the earth spitting out her plans. I watched from my boat as her workers flailed, pumps choking against the lake's quiet revolt. Cassandra showed up, heels sinking in mud, yelling at engineers who couldn't explain the spring-loaded ground. Her grand opening was a catastrophe. Ignoring storm warnings, she hosted VIPs on a floating platform. I followed protocol, opening floodgates as rain lashed and waves roiled. The platform tilted, tables slid, guests scrambled through mud. The mayor's wife sat drenched, tablecloths floated like surrender flags. Cassandra's polish cracked, her suit soaked, her empire crumbling. I watched from the shadows, feeling the lake's justice. But Cassandra hit back hard. Cameras sprouted outside my cabin, and a lawsuit accused me of sabotage. Edited footage made me look like a maniac tampering with the dam. Lucas dug up proof her engineers ignored flood zone data, but her media blitz was brutal. A former colleague, Jack Riley, took her cash to lie on TV, calling me unhinged. Neighbors shunned me. The diner waitress flinched at my presence. I sat with bourbon, staring at the lake, wondering if I was the villain they claimed. Earl Jenkins, my 73-year-old neighbor, showed up with bourbon and my old surveys. "This lake needs you," he said. We poured over deep water channels under Cassandra's main foundation. I cleared her debris, letting the earth breathe. At her next press conference, boasting an 80-cabin Whisper Estates 2.0, the ground groaned. Foundations sank as water reclaimed its paths. An investor bailed on live TV. "You didn't mention reactive soil," he said. Cassandra froze, speechless. Her collapse was swift bankruptcy, fraud charges, investors gone. She slipped away at dawn, a moving truck her only companion, no longer the titan who'd tried to own Whisper. 6 months later, the lake was protected, wildlife thriving, the water gold under the sunset. Earl and I sat on my dock, coffee steaming, loons calling. "Respect the water," my grandfather said. Cassandra forgot. Nature didn't. What would you have done? Share below.